Hi there, Dr. Karen here, and today I'm going to talk about a few of my favorite mental health topics. As you may know, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I've been practicing over 20 years, so I've learned a lot. And some of my favorite topics are attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADD, ADHD. And then I definitely am familiar with the codependency space, and then setting boundaries is one of my favorite topics. So today I just want to talk a little bit about kind of how all three of those tie together. Let me just briefly go over what is ADHD. Attention deficit disorder affects impulse control, emotional regulation. It's common in kids and adults, and it can really amplify someone's reactivity. A kid with ADHD might struggle with meltdowns, things like that, and they might forget things. And just, a quick anecdote about ADHD, it might be like, okay, here's our morning routine, have your bowl of cereal, get your shoes and socks on, and they could still be, not even eating their cereal or put their shoes or put their socks on or brush their teeth or done anything on the list, 45 minutes later, and okay, go back, did you brush your teeth? Did you put your shoes and socks on? Did you eat? Pack your lunch, not getting anywhere, not focusing. But, then if you kind of implement, there's certain strategies that work, implementing more structure or, having a whiteboard list, I'm kind of digressing, and then, as far as presentation in adults, just having trouble focusing, like, oh, squirrel, that's the funny example. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about codependency. What is codependency? It's when helping hurts. So it's when someone prioritizes other people's needs over their own. So you could be in a relationship with somebody, it could be, a significant other, it could be a parent, it could be a child. It's where your needs are more important than mine. And I put all my energy into your well-being and your getting all your needs met, your hobbies, the things that you're into, and I completely, disregard myself. So it's also common in high stress situations, like if there's a medical diagnosis, like in a cancer situation, and some of the signs are people pleasing, difficulty saying no, feeling responsible for someone else's feelings or situation. If we're adults, we're responsible for taking care of ourselves. Obviously, if you're a parent of a minor child, like I'm responsible for my children, they live in my house. I'm responsible for feeding them, providing shelter, structure, educational opportunities, all the things. And then of course, I know it kind of gets gray, I have a 20-year-old. He's not in my house this summer. He's working for General Motors in Fort Wayne, Indiana. But he's still my dependent. I'm still, worried about him, but he is making money. I know he's buying his own groceries this week. I digress. And then here's some more examples of codependency. Like a parent might skip self-care to manage a child's breakdowns. If you could be in a relationship and you could skip your workouts. You could skip spending time with friends or family because of a new relationship. So that's what codependency is, and then I love exploring that space with kind of recovering from that. Next, I want to talk about what boundaries are. Boundaries are the key for keeping your balance, and balance is one of my favorite topics. When I first started in practice and I had an infant, balancing work and family life was just blaring, in my face. Like that was all that I could think about, and I had a hard time leaving my infant in daycare to go to work. So anyway, boundaries are limits that you set to protect your emotional and your well-being. Like here, I'm in my backyard, there's a fence around my property. That's an example of a boundary. There are emotional boundaries, like saying no. There are time-based boundaries, like scheduling self-care, or as far as being a psychologist in private practice, like not running over sessions. Not that doesn't happen quite a bit. Physical boundaries, like personal space. And why do they matter? Because if we don't, then we're not taking care of ourselves, we're not honoring ourselves, we're gonna get burnout, we're gonna be resentful, and resentment comes out a little bit differently than anger, it's more subtle. But if I don't honor my boundaries and I allow you, not you personally, but if I allow someone to kind of infringe on my boundaries, then I'm gonna be resentful, and I'm not gonna know why I'm feeling that unless I have a lot of insight. Here are some examples, like telling a child, I need 10 minutes before we talk about this. That's a good model for healthy boundaries. You can imagine a fence around your property. You can imagine a shield. When I work with clients, I'll say, imagine a bubble, like in one of the Wizard of Oz movies. That's my emotional boundaries. So somebody could say something that's not true about me and it's not gonna get in. So boundaries are really, really important. It's an act of self-care. They are not selfish. Really, really important, and especially with highly sensitive people or parenting a highly sensitive kid. So now I'm going to talk a little bit how these mental health topics intersect. ADHD can heighten emotional sensitivity, making boundaries harder to set. Codependency can worsen ADHD. Parents could, for example, they could compensate for their child's struggles. But without boundaries, both ADHD and codependency lead to overwhelm. So, a parent with ADHD could struggle with setting limits. That kind of reinforces codependent patterns. So they all kind of tie in. And then just, some strategies to work with these. You definitely want to create structure with ADHD. You want to manage ADHD with compassion for yourself or for your child or loved one. Replace guilt with affirmations like "my needs matter too." You want to recognize patterns. You could practice co-regulation, with your kids or your partner. Use visual schedule, create structure. The more structure, the better. Create visual structure. I love worksheets. I also love getting, a dry erase board or a poster board, mapping things out. Celebrate strengths. And then as far as a little bit back into the codependency, you want to recognize patterns. Like notice when you're overgiving. I might notice that I'm overgiving when I'm starting to feel really tired or burnt out or resentful. That means I may have given too much that week or had too much on my plate. You want to practice self-compassion again. Seek support. There are some. I'm a big fan of group support. There's the 12-Step World. There's Codependence Anonymous. All sorts of wonderful programs. And then you practice saying no. In my boundaries course, we have scripts and a lot of practice saying no, or that doesn't work for me, or let me get back to you. And then coming back to the group, because once you set boundaries, then there's this kind of pushback if people are used to being able to be in the world with you in a certain way. So you definitely need some support, reinforcing that. What else do I want to say? You want to teach kids or loved ones to respect boundaries. You want to reinforce boundaries even during meltdowns. And a boundary could be, like no phone calls after 9 p.m., no work emails on the weekends, things like that. So what are next steps? You can join my Substack, so you can get my blog, follow my YouTube channel. I put out videos at least once a week, sometimes more than that. I've done a lot of parenting videos lately. I've been promoting my summer toolkit, so I'm pretty excited about that. But and then just drop me, a message, give me a phone call, send me an email, let me know what questions you have, how I can help you and your family. But that's just a little wrap up. So thanks for tuning in. Have a good evening.